program for those impacted by the Altadena Eaton Canyon fire. We think it is neither fast nor fair, but when we organized the community town hall, Southern California Edison first confirmed participation and then abruptly canceled. There was no time available on Mr. Pizarro's calendar for a face-to-face conversation with the individuals and families who have lost everything due to the negligence of Southern California Edison. This is not an accident. This is a choice about who deserves direct engagement and who gets managed through press statements. When you talk to the LA Times about people, you control the narrative. You get to frame the issues on your terms, with your spin, filtered through journalists who may or may not push back. But when you show up to a town hall, you face real questions from real people experiencing real problems. There's no PR buffer. There's real accountability. This pattern of being available to corporate media, but unavailable for community dialogue, sends a clear message about whose voices matter and whose don't. It's the kind of disrespect that hides behind busy schedules and prior commitments, but the community sees right through it. If these issues are important enough to discuss with the LA Times, they're important enough to discuss directly with the people living them. Anything less isn't just disrespectful, it's a fundamental failure of leadership and accountability. Mr. Pizarro says in the LA Times interview, I need to go to the supermarket in Pasadena or Altadena and be able to look people in the eye. We want to do the right thing for our community. You had a chance to look folk in the eye at our town hall meeting last week, but you didn't show up. And then we invited you for a one-on-one conversation here at the station, but you have yet to confirm. So please stop with the gaslighting. With the KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Tavis Smiley, and as always, we welcome your feedback.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Looking forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show in our second hour on Moving Mountain Mondays. Our very special guest in this hour is our regular contributor, Reverend Teresa Terry Horde Owens, the General Minister and President of the Christian Church Disciples of Christ in the United States and Canada, an author and advocate for the church living out its calling. She's the first person of color and second woman to lead the denomination. Since her election in 2017, Reverend Horde Owens' ministry actively reflects the disciples' priority of being anti-racist church, being a movement for wholeness, welcoming all to the Lord's table as God has welcomed us. In keeping with the disciples' historic commitment to Christianity and Christian unity, she serves in leadership at the National Council of Churches as the treasurer of the governing board and a member of the World Council of Churches Central Committee. Reverend Terry Horde Owens, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show and to your show, Moving Mountain Mondays on KBLA Talk 1580.
Good to be with you, my brother. How are you?
I'm hanging in there. It's going to be all right. It's going to be all right. You make my Mondays move a lot faster than it would without you. Can I just make a quick announcement?
Sure.
I want Pedro Pizarro at Southern California Edison to let him know that we have not forgotten him. In fact, I had a really interesting conversation about this struggle that KBLA and the Altadena community is in with Reverend Sharpton earlier today. And we talked about some ideas that he'll share with Tavis on how we get Mr. Pizarro's attention. But it's going to spread. It's not going to get smaller. Simple disrespect that Tavis is talking about. Call Tavis back. Have a conversation with Tavis. But it's going to spread, and that's almost a guarantee. In fact, I had another conversation with one of our co-hosts, Reverend Todd Yeary. Dr. Yeary said, now is the time to pull out the Jesse Jackson playbook. He said that, why don't we Google what the cost of Southern California Edison stock is? And he says, why don't we have everybody buy one share? And I think I looked it up the other day. It was only $25. Get one share, and we take a delegation of people to the board meeting. Because we're stockholders, to the shareholders meeting. And that gives us a right, even with one share, to voice our opinion in front of all of the shareholders about what we consider to be disrespectful. And, at those shareholder meetings and board meetings, we can call for anything because we are owners of the company. And so Todd Yeary's thinking through the strategy of how Jesse Jackson would apply his methodology to this moment. In the meantime, you can help us by calling Pedro, PEDRO.PIZARRO at SCE.com. Call 626-302-2255. Press number 1. Let Pedro Pizarro know that all he has to do is call Tavis Smiley. But this is going to spread short of a phone call and a conversation with Brother Smiley and the people of Altadena and the disrespect that is being shown. We can make this right now. We can make it right now.
Yeah.
Got to call Tavis at KBLA. Dr. Reverend Owens, let me ask you a question about moral decay. I know that we only have a minute or so before we come forward, but I touched upon it with Brother Krim in the first hour. The emails are revealing a moral decay on both sides of the political spectrum. It's not limited to one party or to one individual. Madam President?
There indeed is a moral decay, and it comes from a sense of disrespect for others, for the people that we work with and the people that we serve. And I think it really comes, I'm always saying that, I tell my denomination, Christians are spiritually dry and biblically illiterate. And I think people in general are just spiritually dry. We don't have a real sense of something being greater or even more important than ourselves.
At least for me, the email seems to suggest that there is no moral hierarchy, that no party can necessarily claim themselves to be morally advantageous or morally higher or more correct than the other. They've all been hiding something horrible here.
They've all been hiding something horrible. And the hierarchy of whiteness and maledom in this country is just amazing. I'm not so concerned about who's in those emails. I want those girls to get justice. I think it's more important, whoever's in the emails, these young girls need justice, young women now.
Absolutely. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. This is Moving Mountain Mondays and the Faith Not to Fall with Reverend Teresa Hord Owens. We're talking about moral decay in the nation and what it's going to take to reestablish a moral foundation. More when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Target brings more taste, more flavor, and more deals to your Thanksgiving table. Save big on affordable holiday crowd pleasers, like select elevated sides and appetizers from Good & Gather for only $4.99. Favorite day pies for a sweet finishing touch, also just $4.99. And don't forget, great tasting turkey for only 79 cents a pound. So many cravings, so many ways to save. Step into the holidays and elevate your Thanksgiving today. Only at Target. Restrictions apply.
We're with Bridget, whose husband won't be home for months, and whose daughter is due any day. We're with Mike, who's leaving home to protect his family and yours. We're with all service members and their families who need community, connection, and maybe a bit of magic. Are you with them? Learn more at uso.org today.
Hey, KBLA 1580 delegation, your health matters to us. We know that information is power, especially when it comes to prevention and treatment. That's why we're proud to introduce the brand new KBLA Health and Wellness Hub. This online space is built just for you, connecting our community to trusted health resources, culturally relevant care, and even access to diverse clinical trials and emerging therapies. Whether you're looking for information on common conditions, mental health support, or just want to stay on top of your wellness journey, we got you. And the best part, it's all on our website at KBLA1580.com. Accessible, empowering, community focused. So just go to KBLA1580.com and click on the Health and Wellness Hub icon, because knowledge is power and your health is everything. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to Moving Mountain Mondays on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show and the Faith Not to Fall with Reverend Terry Ford Owens, who is a native of Terre Haute, Indiana, and a descendant of one of Indiana's oldest African-American free settlements. She earned a bachelor's degree in government with a minor from Harvard University. Reverend Owens, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you, my friend. Always good to be here.
It's a pleasure, Madam President. I want to go back to this question of moral decay, because it seems like neither party can make solely the argument that it is more righteous than the other. And I'm wondering, in this moment, and I'm trying to think of some kind of biblical reflection here. In this moment, there's this intervention in human history that is the life of Jesus of Nazareth, that is the lives of the disciples, both male and female, that stands between the two polar opposites on moral questions, each having their own shortcomings, neither of which were exposed. But this incredible figure emerges, speaking truth to power, whether it is in the form of Moses, who had a troubling childhood and life, whether it is the leadership of David and his behaviors, whether it is the prophet Muhammad, whether it is Jesus of Nazareth, and any of the latter-day prophets. Everyone has fallen short of the glory of God. And yet, somehow in the final analysis, to reestablish some moral foundation, we turn away from the bad that men and women have done to seeing the good in them and advancing the higher callings and the higher principle. Is there a way out of this mess that we find ourselves in right now, Madam President?
I think there is a way out of it, and that it all requires, in each of those biblical characters that you named, at some point there came a realization that they themselves were flawed, that they themselves were not perfect, and that they themselves needed the power and the grace of something bigger than themselves, that there was something beyond them to which they must be accountable, and that they had to be accountable. I think back on even what you wrote, and I think the finger of God, that the assumption, right, of the America's founding fathers was that the people who would lead would be people of character. And there were certain guardrails that were put up to ensure that that would never be abused. And it almost flies in the face of what we have always thought was right and just, that somehow morality doesn't even play a picture. We've seen candidates just wiped out of races for lots of different things. And recently with Donald Trump, the list goes on and on. 34 felonies, convicted a sexual abuser, George Santos. You see all the people, the January 6th folks, people who have committed horrible crimes, and yet the system has ultimately not held them accountable. And there's been something, I always say, when we do things that don't make sense, there's something more important. So what is it? And I think it's human greed, it's human vanity, and it's a failure to have basic love and respect for other people. Growing up, my dad always had these rules in our house. If you didn't refill the toilet paper, if you didn't refill the paper towels, if you didn't refill the water jar, if you didn't do your chores when you were told to, if you had to be told more than once to do your chores, you would get a deduction of 10% of your allowance. And his rule was, there are other people in the house. There are other people in the house. There are other people in the country. And will we lose sight of the fact that there are other people and think only of ourselves? Whatever your faith tradition, whatever your philosophical stance may be, if you move through the world thinking that you are the only person in the house, you do great damage to all who are around you. So I think the moral decay comes from the center of human greed. I just saw in the news over the weekend that my undergraduate alma mater, Harvard University, has started a love program.
Really?
a love program. I should have gotten the details, but a love program. I think there are like 4 goals. It has to be, it's really self-respect, respecting other people, just really basic kinds of things. And I'm sitting there going, this is such an interesting, a noble set of goals, but very interesting for them to have tacked the name love onto it, and to publicize, as opposed to this just being an intrinsic value of both self-respect and respect for others and valuing other people. But I think part of what they're getting at is that our mental health is suffering. We see it in our young people. There's all kinds of data. I have a 14-year-old niece, and just finishing 8th grade, and my brother and sister-in-law were making me aware of just all the data about the angst that middle schoolers have about whether they're accepted, whether they're liked, in a way that I'm not sure my generation, and maybe we had it and we just dealt with it differently. But we're in some difficult times, and I think our society is no longer prioritizing the creating of moral frameworks as we raise our children. We want to indulge people. We want people to strive and get everything that they want. Nobody's telling us that sometimes we don't get everything that we want. Nobody's telling us that we don't need to get everything that we want. We're not raising kids with moral frameworks anymore.
Madam President, I want to flush out and pick up on something that you said about accountability. Because in this moment, if I had to write a book or a pamphlet or a thought that I would publish almost immediately, the title of my book would be The Other Side of Accountability. The other side of accountability.
Mm-hmm.
That is, we're not holding each other, to your point, accountable.
Mm-hmm.
You see, if you can do something wrong and not be held accountable, then your life is not likely to change because you've not had adequate time to reflect upon the life that you lived on this side of Nicodemus's question about being born again in the flesh and or being born again in spirit.
That's
you
right.
have to be held accountable. And on the other side of accountability, if you're going to live in this life, since you're not going to re-enter your mother's womb, the Nicodemus question, you're going to be born again in the spirit. But that sounds quick. It sounds, like a great biblical quote. It's a great biblical conversation between Jesus and Nicodemus, but it doesn't honor the pause that is necessary to understand. And that is called accountability. That the flesh that you are presently in must be held accountable for your behavior. And almost everyone, I can't say that everyone on the other side of accountability has transformed their lives, but on the other side of accountability is the possibility of transformation. On the other side of accountability.
That's right. On the other side of the accountability is really redemption, which is a restoration of relationship and fellowship, right?
That's it.
That's it. That the only hope for that kind of reconciliation must be first. We talk about racism in the United States and all other kinds of social injustices, and I've studied closely the Truth and Reconciliation Commission in South Africa. The premise, though, is that the truth must be told and justice must prevail in order for there to be reconciliation. And justice doesn't have to destroy people. We don't have to destroy people in order for redemption to come, but there must be an acknowledgement and an accountability of what we've done that has violated the social contract. If you have no religious framework at all, human society is built on some common understanding of the common law of some sort of social contract that allows us to inhabit this earth without killing each other. And when we have allowed systems, as we have in the United States, that for now over a decade, people are running rampant without being held accountable for the things that they're doing.
Let me pick up on that, Madam President, because this week, Donald Trump pardoned some January 6 rioters who he had already pardoned upon his election as president of the United States a second time. Because these were people who were not held accountable the first time. So there's been no reflection on the change in their behavior. They commit another series of crimes. He has to pardon them again and again and again and again, because on this side of accountability, there should be a new life subject to the reflection that led to the reflection for accountability. I mean, I was
Yeah.
watching a news program a couple of months ago where Hunter Biden decided to talk for the first time since his father left office. And I'm like listening, but then at a certain point, I just turn it off because, you know, I've done time, right? And I'm like,
Yeah.
dude, you did no
Yeah.
time. You did no time. I mean, you have
Did
no
no
credibility
time.
here. I have not heard any
Absolutely
remorse in your voice. You've not
correct.
shared with us what you've done wrong. You've not owned your behavior. You got a pardon that you didn't earn. There are 70 million people waiting in line for them longer than you. You got one. And here you are lecturing to those of us who've paid our debts to society about, you know, what you think is wrong with the government and the new administration. Well, what about what you just benefited from, brother?
That's
I,
exactly right. Yeah,
I, I,
it's no, go ahead. No, I feel you. I feel you on this, and I, as someone who has observed you and your trajectory, and have watched you deal with such integrity, that whole process of accountability. We're living with a president who has, at least by virtue of the law, been held accountable multiple times, but then has stretched even the powers beyond what they were ever intended to be. And we have parts of our government that have been complicit in saying it's okay for him not to be held accountable, right? The Supreme Court, it's like, it's okay. So he's doing dog whistles to say, don't worry about that. If you go along with me on this, he's, preemptive pardons for all of the people, all of the attorneys who worked with him on the whole 2020 election fraud hoax scenario. Just an amazing sense to say, do what I want you to do. It's okay. You won't have to pay the price. I won't hold you accountable. And then today we have Lindsay Halligan, the district U.S. attorney who filed the cases against James Comey and Letitia James, being roughly just torn up by the judge, basically saying that the government, it's clear there's evidence for misconduct by the government, that they have not done what they're going to do. Who's going to be held accountable for that? Perhaps Lindsay Halligan, but it won't be Donald Trump, and it won't be other people who probably should be held accountable. So as the old adage says, anything that comes close to Trump dies. Anything Trump touches dies. But this flagrant sense of the rules don't apply to me, ultimately, I think our country must wake up and realize that we have the right to insist on that kind of accountability to our larger society, and that we cannot allow our elected officials to simply ignore us. So the situation with the electric utility in California, there are lots of folks who say it should not be the case that public utilities are privately owned. You should not have that level of, you shouldn't be that far removed from accountability to the people that you serve. I can choose where I buy my car. I can choose where I buy my clothes. I don't have options about where I get gas, power, utilities. I don't have a choice in that. Those are common goods. And so for people to benefit without accountability by exploiting the very people that they serve and the communities they serve, that's just the height of evil, a height of greed. And I think that I love Todd Urey's idea. Yeah, buy some stock, show up at the meetings, stand up. My husband says that people have flagged my file in various places because I'm just that person who will go and show up at the meeting and talk if I have a place, if I have a right to be in the room. So I think that's just so important. I am really fed up, I have to say, with people acting like that I don't matter, that my interests as a human being don't matter, and it's going to be the ruin of our society.
I'm going to find somebody to buy about $250 worth of Southern California Edison stock for Tavis and KBLA, and let Tavis have the ability to go to the shareholders meeting. And
Yeah.
on half of the $250 worth of stock he has, he gets the floor. Yeah.
Yeah.
All the
I
shareholders.
think people forget that the
What's
people have a
wrong?
vote, right? The people have a vote. It's like the Democrat. It's like the Democrats, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
What did you think? Who did you think were going to pay attention when you decided to cave? Weren't you listening? And I fear that there will be some people, some Democrats who will be primary. And I think the best thing that we can do as Americans is insist that our elected officials are held accountable. And if you're not speaking for us, out you go.
I know that we have about a minute before we come forward, but I want to say very quickly, when I was in prison, we had this little program that we were in where we had to hold each other accountable. And it was the small things. It was the person who took the apple out of the cafeteria. Brother, listen, now you know that you just took that apple out of the cafeteria, and we go up to him and say, I got to hold you accountable. Because this right here is an apple in the prison, but in the real world, this is a bag of potato chips or some liquor from a liquor store that you just took out of there. There are consequences and repercussions for that. Or how did you sneak that piece of chicken out of the cafeteria? Well, brother, hey, because we're gonna get something to eat later. But no, brother, I gotta hold you accountable because you see, you're in prison and you ain't changing your behavior. And all I got to work with right now is this apple and this piece of chicken that you just stole. You're letting me know that you're capable on the outside of the same behavior. So we would take little bitty things and hold people accountable and then share with them what the consequences of their behavior were. And that they're not even learning their lesson. That's right. Over an apple. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. listening to the Faith Not to Fall and why we do fall on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show with Reverend Terry Hord Owens. More when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Authorities in Newark, New Jersey are searching for suspects after a shooting Saturday night killed 10-year-old Jordan Garcia and 21-year-old Kia Mae Scott and wounded 3 others, including Garcia's younger brother.
But these incidents made clear that there's a lot more work to be done.
That's Black Mayor Ras Baraka addressing the tragedy, and a $10,000 reward is being offered for information. University of Dayton leaders in Ohio held a town hall after a student was shot in the ankle during a Halloween party. Members of the Black Action Through Unity group say that since the incident, racist messages have been circulating on anonymous apps, adding to concerns about campus safety. And the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department is investigating new sexual assault claims against Sean Diddy Combs. Music producer Jonathan Hay says Diddy assaulted him in 2021, filing a civil suit in July. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
It's the Black Friday of all Black Fridays now at Big O Tires. Buy 3, get 1 free on select tires with paid installation, or get 50% off a full synthetic oil change and 20% off any repair service. It's Black Friday now through December 7th at your local Big O Tires.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
A couple of highlights and one lowlight from the Rams and Chargers games on Sunday. When Rams wide receiver Devontae Adams caught a 1-yard touchdown pass from quarterback Matthew Stafford, it was the 1,000th career catch for Adams in his 11-year career. Stafford's 2 touchdown passes yesterday gives him 27 this season, tops in the NFL. As for the lowlight, the Chargers gave up a season-high 192 yards rushing at Jacksonville and 4 rushing touchdowns. The Chargers got manhandled at the line of scrimmage. Fortunately for the Chargers, the 192 yards rushing is not the most allowed by a team this season. The Carolina Panthers gave up 374 yards rushing to the New York Giants on October 12th. Top 5 college football teams in this week's top 25 rankings: Ohio State, Tabitha Smiley's Indiana Hoosiers, Texas A&M, Georgia, and Mississippi. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Zoe Williams, aka the Voice of Reason, encouraging you to join me weekdays from 7 to 9 p.m. for the world's most intriguing relationship radio roundtable. Every night, I facilitate and encourage our loyal listeners to participate in the most engaging relationship discussions you'll hear anywhere. So make it a point to rendezvous with me, Zoe Williams, the Voice of Reason, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Trust me, your relationships will never be the same. The VOR is on fire tonight.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
This is a special alert to all Americans who own a vehicle with less than 200,000 miles with an auto warranty about to expire or with no warranty coverage at all. Due to a decline in the economy, CarShield is announcing a low-cost month-to-month vehicle protection plan that is now available to the public to save any driver out-of-pocket expenses on future auto repairs. Call now to find out how you can pay almost nothing for covered auto repairs. Yes, you heard that correctly. Pay almost nothing for covered auto repairs. An open phone line has been established for all drivers to call for a free quick quote. Call 800-478-6430 now. Drivers who are covered will not have to pay for covered repairs again. This protection plan is at an all-time low. Additionally, drivers who activate this vehicle protection today will also receive free roadside assistance, free towing, and car rental options at no additional cost. Call us for your free quick quote today. 800-478-6430. That's 800-478-6430. What do you have to lose? Call 800-478-6430. Again, 800-478-6430.
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. We are very blessed on Moving Mountain Mondays, the Faith Not to Fall, with Reverend Dr. Terry Hord Owens, who is the President and General Minister of the Disciples of Christ Church, both in the United States and Canada. She is the second woman, but the first woman of color to head the denomination of a multiracial, racist church and congregation. She offers a very unique perspective on the world and on morality here on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show every week. Reverend Terry Hord Owens, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you. Always good to be here on Mondays.
Madam President, we have a public example, at least a potential public example of the transformation of a person in public. Oftentimes, this transformation takes place privately. It might be in a relationship. It might be in a prison cell. It might be in a church service. It might be in one's own conscience, locked between one's own ears, where they have this reckoning. And Saul may have to fall off of his horse and hit his head and become the Apostle Paul and change his anti-Christian killing ways as a Roman soldier. Marjorie Taylor Greene seems to be going through some kind of public transformation. She seems to be asking for, I don't think she's at forgiveness yet, but she's clearly at buyer's remorse. She's clearly at, I can't explain some of what's going on here. I am going through a public something that suggests a reach out, a change of position, an openness to fighting maybe for what's right, but we're witnessing a process. It is a process. It's not something you necessarily do. Your thoughts on the Marjorie Taylor Greene before and the Marjorie Taylor Greene who's in transition?
You know, I think the Marjorie Taylor Greene and other people were swept into power during this wave of we're grabbing power and we can do whatever we want. And we're grabbing power, and what we're going to do with that power is ensure that we get to do everything we want to do and no one else has input or say, and we're just going to dominate. And there was no sense of accountability as long as you were in good graces with Donald Trump. It's really akin to worshiping a false idol, right? There are lots of clips where she would show up, right, during the campaign at airplane arrivals and try to be in the crowd and get close to him, and he would just walk right by her. But she was always like this hungry puppy, seeking the favor and seeking just wanting only his approval. And what's happened, I'm not inside her head. I don't understand what her own process has been, but she has, I think, figured out that there are going to be some people that will hold her and others accountable, not only for the Epstein files, but for other things. But the Epstein files seem to be sticking in a way that other things have not. And I think she's now making a calculation that ultimately there's going to be some accountability from the voters. And she probably feels that she has more to gain by standing with the people on this than she does with Donald Trump. So it's a calculus that people make. Initially, I think about how they can secure their own power. She made a poor calculus, as many people are waking up to find, and the numbers in the Republican Party of the people who are going to vote for that resolution to release those files indicate that on this matter, if nothing else, they are paying attention to what the people want. Now, why it's this and nothing else, I don't know. I do hope that the wider electorate is becoming more savvy to the ways in which they have been bamboozled. And we saw in the elections last week, was it the week before last, almost 2 weeks now, that people were like, oh, no, not here, not now, not in our name. And I think that kind of understanding that we do have at least the ballot box where we can hold people accountable is important. But I think she's decided that she's made a poor calculus, and that if she stands with Trump, her long-term trajectory is not as good as she perhaps thought it might be.
That would certainly be the political calculus, but I read a story, at least I had heard a story, where she may even have family members who receive the Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program. She got family members on welfare. And now, she's heard from some family members who said, hey, I can't afford my health insurance premiums. And that doesn't even come close to the number of constituents she's got to be hearing from.
She should be talking about that. One of the things that I love so much about my work with Bishop William Barber is that whenever we're on the Hill doing lobbying or doing a press conference or whatever we're doing, he's always making sure that the voices of the people who are impacted by these policies or the threat of the policies are there. The people who, when we were there on October 30th with Hakeem Jeffries, people who are suffering from, who will suffer from cuts to Medicaid, cuts to the SNAP program that are in the horrible, awful bill, listening to people who have suffered, listening to clergy who even are suffering in these days and ages. Our own denomination no longer has a self-funded health insurance plan. And if a church isn't large enough and can't afford a plan for, a small group employer plan, a lot of our clergy are purchasing through the Affordable Care Act exchange. And our pension fund has had to come alongside, I think I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago, and provide some money to get people maybe through the first part of 2026 if those subsidies do in fact go away. So when the helpers are starting to hurt, those are stories that we need to tell. These are stories that we need to, that need to be told. By the numbers, there are more poor people. By the numbers, there are more poor white people than there are Black people. There's a greater percentage of Black people who fall into the poverty lines, but the literal numbers of people who are poor and using these programs, they're white people. And we have Dr. King, right? His last work, your dad, the initial Poor People's Campaign, your dad's focus on having some benefit from the economic system has to say that we have more in common than we do by just racial differences. And she should be talking about that, because I think that will resonate with a lot of people.
Madam President, Trina writes, I don't think in our chat she's in transition. She thought that this was a moral shift for America that was based in Christian nationalism, laying blame on Black and brown culture. Many of them are splitting on the Epstein files. Your thoughts on what Trina has to say about that?
Absolutely. And Christian nationalism itself is an aberration of Christianity and of nationalism. The United States, common to popular belief, and if you're a history geek like me, you're watching Ken Burns' The Revolutionary War series, which is now as playing on PBS and streaming on PBS. But there was never the puritanical element that came to the United States did have this sense that even though they came to find freedom of worship, they were pretty insistent that you worship the way they wanted to. But the goal in the United States, that Thomas Jefferson, with the freedom of religion statutes in Virginia, they were saying, no, we have the ability, in order to be American, you don't have to worship in a certain way. You can be free to worship as you choose. And in order to be a Christian, I don't get to dictate to you that in order to be a good Christian, you're a certain kind of American. So that's the first aberration. And I think people are coming to understand that just because they shrouded it in the flag and the cross does not mean that it's actually either Christianity or patriotism. And as a minister, I'm with a group of a lot of folks who've been trying to reclaim the real Christian narrative of Jesus away from all of that. And I think there are some people who are waking up to see that, they got, the okie doke. People are being duped. And I do think Christian nationalism, for people who didn't understand what it was really all about, they thought, oh, it's about Jesus. It's about the United States. I'm a Christian and I love my country. Well, what's wrong with Christian nationalism? And we don't inquire. We're not curious enough anymore. Holding people accountable requires some level of curiosity to pay attention to what's really going on and asking questions and understanding. If we want to have some say in our government, we have to pay attention to it.
Madam President, I think it amazing that some Americans actually think Jesus was actually an American, and that the Bible stories written in the Bible are actually the stories of the early Americans, and that somehow the Bible is their story, that it has no origin in its geopolitically situated context. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, The Faith Not to Fall, on Moving Mountain Mondays with the Reverend Dr. Terry Hort Owens. More when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
I found out that one of my players was vaping. And I said, hey, right now it's time to be honest with me. And he said almost everybody in my team was vaping. The next day, all the parents came in. I said, how many of you guys think that your kids are vaping? Not one of them raised their hand. There's a joint fight to make something better. We don't sit back and let it happen.
Coach Sanchez is exposing Big Tobacco's playbook. Learn how he and other Californians are beating Big Tobacco at undo.org.
At Charmin, we heard you shouldn't talk about going to the bathroom in public, so we decided to sing about it.
Light a candle, pour some wine. Grab a roll, the soft kind for a little me time. Charmin Ultra Soft Smooth Tear. Wavy edges for my rear. So let the softness caress your soul. Just relax, you're on a roll. Let her rip. Charmin Ultra Soft Smooth Tear.
Charmin Ultra Soft Smooth Tear has the same softness you love, now with wavy edges that tear better than the leading one-ply brand. Enjoy the go with Charmin.
Find what you love, love what you find. A total wine and more. There's so much waiting for you. Spirits and beer, thousands of wines. Guides in the know and prices so low, it just might blow your mind. You're gonna find what you love. and love what you find.
With curbside pickup and delivery available, you'll always find what you love, only at Total Wine & More.
Drink responsibly, B21.
Lena Bloom for the Bail Project. Imagine you're stuck in a jail cell and you can't afford bail and someone offers you a way out. Just plead guilty and you can go home and kiss your kids goodnight. What do you do? What thousands have. You plead guilty whether you are or not. Cash bail makes poverty a crime. That's why the Bail Project helps those who can't afford it while fighting to end cash bail. Because freedom should be free. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a whole lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. If you need help getting your resume in order, finding job training, or landing a job, we've got 3 great options for you. First, the City of Los Angeles has WorkSource centers across the area offering free job support. The California Workforce Development Board can help you with everything from GED prep to vocational training at no cost to you. On the federal level, the Department of Labor's American Job Centers offer a full range of services for job seekers and businesses alike. Visit careeronestop.org, or for more info, just call California's Help Center or visit cwdb.ca.gov or call 916-657-1440. For the City of Los Angeles programs, go to ewdd.lacity.gov or call 213-744-7300. All these services are free to help you get your next job. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Ready to order?
Yes. We're earning unlimited 3% cash back on dining and entertainment with the Capital One Saver card. So let's just get one of everything.
Everything?
Fire everything. The Capital One Saver card is at table 27 and they're earning unlimited 3% cash back.
Yes, chef! This is so nice.
Had a feeling you'd want 3% cash back on dessert.
Ooh, tiramisu.
Earn unlimited 3% cash back on dining and entertainment with the Capital One Saver card. Capital One, what's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com for details.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. Happy birthday, Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. So glad to be a member of this illustrious fraternity with my father, the Reverend Jesse Jackson, and many other notables, but it's really not the notables that make up this fraternity. It's the less than notables in the fraternity. My brothers we be kicking it with, who found commonality, common ground, mostly college-educated, sophisticated brothers who are making an extraordinary contribution to our society. But man, I do mean when we get together, we have the time of our lives. Happy birthday, Omega Psi Phi. Reverend Terry Hort Owens, let me touch upon a sensitive issue because I received a questionnaire the other day from a family values council, and then I have my own experience in this area. When I was in Philadelphia campaigning for Kamala Harris, across the state of Pennsylvania, I was driving through Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, when my truck broke down, and ended up having to check into a hotel in downtown Harrisburg for 3 or 4 days until they found a new part for my car. But it was like a Saturday, Sunday, and a Monday. Left, I think, on Tuesday. The car was ready by Tuesday morning, but I got the opportunity to sit through Monday night football in the middle of this campaign in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and well, let's just say that the game was very interesting, Pittsburgh versus somebody, but it was the commercials between the plays, commercial breaks, that were the subject of a focus group that I had no idea I was volunteering to participate in. It must have been this 6'5" guy in a basketball game playing against young ladies who were on the other team, where the tallest one of them might have been about 5 feet, maybe 5'8", maybe. Anyway, this guy was like this person was like 6'5" and was dunking. And the whole transgendered issue was more animated than the football game itself. I mean, to sit over in the corner and watch the game, but to watch the activity of people who were angry about the commercial. And I was told that Bill Clinton told Kamala Harris, you've got to respond to these commercials, and the Harris campaign ignored it. But when we talk about, the public morality of it all, obviously I don't believe in anything such as an illegal person, and support all of the affirming care that people deserve and need to be healthy. But the politics of a questionnaire that I have to fill out shortly, do I support transgendered men playing in sports with women? Where's the moral common ground in that? It's taken a long time for the development of women's sport in and of itself. And now this question of transgenderization. Madam President?
Yeah, and again, there's such an errant reading of scripture for a lot of Christians who, as far as I'm concerned, and I say this in my book, that everything begins with what we believe about God. And if we believe that God is a God of limitless love, and we believe that love cannot be circumscribed or limited by us, then we have to, there's certain roads we can't go down. We do not, literally, we do not have the right to decide whom God loves, whom we should respect, who's in the circle, who's outside the circle. And the idea, when you say if someone who has transitioned to becoming a woman is biologically and psychologically has become a woman, they're no longer a man playing against girls. So there's such ignorance about what it means to be a trans person. And there is such vitriol towards people who have simply made certain choices for themselves so that they can live in peace and integrity, choices that they literally have the right to make, and that those of us who are not them do not have the right to keep them from making. So if you're a Christian and you're more concerned about the physicality of it all and the process of it all than you are about the humanity of it all, we're already falling short. It has to do with how, that's not the BGs. How deep is your love? Really, what's love got to do with it? But how deep is that love? How far do you think God's love goes? I was a signatory to a statement that came out from the Interfaith Alliance. There are about a dozen of us who are denominational leaders who are basically affirming the humanity of trans persons and persons who were on that, they call them non-gender conforming. They may be on a spectrum of gender expression where you have people who, because gender identity is very different from sexual orientation, right? And so there's so much misinformation and ignorance around these tasks. And we get so focused on being in a position to say what's right and what's wrong and who can be who and who can be what, that we really, I think, violate people's humanity. And I'm not going to allow you to take the gospel that I proclaim and use that to condemn people and to exclude people, because that violates the very principles that Jesus establishes. And every religious tradition has some version of the golden rule, some version of loving your neighbor. And so if we take anything that we say or believe seriously, we can't treat each other like this, because we simply don't have the right to make these choices for each other.
Yeah, I'm in a struggle, because I got to be candid, Madam President, and I know your word of hope is coming forward. I didn't really approach the subject as a Christian. I kind of approached the subject as a parent. And if I'm coming to see my little girl play basketball, and there's a player out there who's dunking on everybody, and snatching all the rebounds, and literally almost carrying two young ladies on both arms while they're laying the ball up, that's not happening, man. I mean, we have to.
That is not happening. And the percentages of the people, I think that they were, somebody did a survey of people in the NCAA to say, how frequently do you even have trans athletes who are playing even in high school or college sports. First of all, we've made them so unwelcome. They probably have no desire to out themselves in that way. But it just, like you say, it's not happening. It first of all, it doesn't happen. And if someone has gone through all of the hormonal therapy and physical therapy that they would have, and I've been watching a former student of mine at the University of Chicago Divinity School who's transitioned to being a woman, and just watching all that he's gone through. He's physically not the same person that he was, and so would not have even the same kind of hormonal or physical strength in the same kind of way. Even so, there's biology and psychology that people are just not educated on, and I think we need to do a lot more work there.
Madam President, about 1 minute and 45 seconds. 1 minute left for a word of hope.
I'm just going to get back to we have to ensure, your dad always says, keep hope alive. And I think that hope has to be grounded in our understanding of our own sense of responsibility for one another. We're accountable for each other. We have to love each other in that way. And we have to build a society where we can all thrive. And I think that's possible. And even though it looks dark, as Maya Angelou said, still I rise. So I rise, I rise, I rise. I hope, look yourself in the mirror and chant that. I rise, I rise, I rise when it looks dark.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You've been listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Moving Mountain Mondays, The Faith Not to Fall, with none other than Reverend Terry Hord Owens, the President and General Minister of the Disciples of Christ Church. More when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580. I'll see you on Tenacious Tuesdays.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.